we want to simplify this square root. Now to do this, here we have that the square root of 81. Let's simplify the denominator. And here we have 9 minus the square root of 80. What we have to do here is to apply the rule of conjugate sort. So here, still under this square root, we multiply both sides, the numerator and the denominator by this denominator, which is going to be 9 plus the square root of 80 divided by 9 plus the square root of 80. Now, next, we still have the same square root. So here, I'm going to have 81 into parentheses of 9 plus the square root of 80. Now, what about the denominator? There's something I'm going to do right here. There's a rule that says that a minus b multiplied by a plus b. This is going to be equals to a squared minus b squared. This is called the rules of difference of two squares. So the 9 is going to be my a, and my b is going to be the square root of 80. So this is going to be the technique I'm going to use right here. So here, I'm going to have a squared, which is 9 squared, minus the square root of 80, which is going to act as my b, all squared. Now, with this, now, based on this, I can simplify the denominator further. So for the numerator, I'm still going to have 81 into parentheses, 9 plus the square root of 80. But as for the denominator here, my 9 squared here is going to be 81 minus another rule of sort that says square root of b all squared. This square is going to cancel out the square root, and we can easily have this as b. So I'm going to use the same rule. So for this is going to be 80. That is, the square root and the square cancel out. So I'm going to have 80. Now, going further from here, so I have, for the numerator, I still have my 81 into parentheses, 9 plus the square root of 80. And for the denominator, I'm having 81 minus 80, which is 1. So this makes a lot of sense. We can further simplify for the numerator. Here, I can further simplify the numerator. There's another rule of sort I'm going to introduce when we have a times b under the same square root. This can be splitted as square root of a multiplied by the square root of b. So using this approach, for the numerator, I can have the square root of 81. Okay? Multiply by the square root of 9 plus the square root of 80. We cannot differentiate, we can't split the addition. We can only split if it is multiplication. Now, based on this, the square root of 81 is purely 9. Multiply by the square root of 9 plus the square root of 80. Now, we need to focus on this. Now, solving this further here, I'm going to have my 9 multiplied by, I'm going to do a trick here by saying 1 multiplied by 9 plus the square root of 80. And this is going to make a little bit sense right now. So here I'm going to have 9 multiplied by the square root of, this one can be written as 2 divided by 2 in parentheses of 9 plus the square root of 80. So this is going to help to simplify further. So with this, I'm going to have 9 multiplied by, in my parentheses right here, 2 multiplying 9. is going to be 18 plus 2 multiplying the square root of 80, all divided by 2. So what I'm going to do again is split 18 to be the addition of 10 and 8. So here I have my 9 multiplying the square root of 18 can be splitted as 10 plus 8 plus 80 can be splitted as 10 times 8, all divided by 2. Now here, to make things look more easier to simplify, here I'm going to have my 10. There's another rule of third that says the square root of a all squared equals to a. So my 10 can be simplified or written in the form of square root of 10 all squared, which is equivalent to 10. The same thing plus 8 for 8, square root of 8 all squared, plus the square root of 10 recall that here we have 2 from this previous page. So here we have plus 2 in parentheses square root of 10 times 8. And for my denominator, I can write this as the square root of 2. Now, for the numerator, there's a rule I'm going to introduce here. Recall that if you have a plus b all squared, this can be written as a squared plus b squared plus 2ab. In that case, this is going to be my a squared, this is going to be my b squared, and this is going to be my 2ab. So this is the trick I'm going to use right now. So here I'm going to have 9 in parentheses my a, which is the square root of 10, plus b, which is the square root of 8, all squared. You can see. So this is the interpretation I'm using. I'm using this law to do this. Now, this has been a little bit simplified. So here I'm going to have my 9 multiplied by the square root. If you look at this carefully, this square root cancels out the square. It cancels out the square. So in this regard, I can say that I have my 9 multiplied by the square root of 10 plus the square root of 8. Everything divided by the square root of 2. Also, we can rationalize. To get rid of the radical as the denominator, we can multiply both numerator and denominator by the square root of 2. So here I'm going to have my 9 root 2 multiplied by 10 can be written as the square root of 2 times 5. And also my 8 can be written as the square root of 4 times 2. Or we still have the square root of 2 multiplying the square root of 2. The rule of radical or surd says that if you have the square root of b multiplying by the square root of b, it is going to be b. So here I'm going to have this as 2. There's a need to go back to these basic rules. You can check some of my previous videos. You see this. Here I have 9 root 2. In parentheses, splitting this can be splitted as square root of 2 multiplied by the square root of 5 plus 4 and 2. Square root of 4 is the same thing as 2 multiplied by the square root of 2. All these divided by 2. Now, from here, I have my 9 multiplied by the square root of 2. Square root of 2 is common to both sides. Factor it out. And in the parentheses, we are left with the square root of 5 plus 2. Everything divided by 2. Also, I'm having the square root of 2 multiplying the square root of 2 here. I can have my 9 times 2 multiplied by the square root of 5 plus 2 all over 2. Now, looking at this can easily cancel out this. So I'm going to have finally 9 multiplied by the square root of 5 plus 2. This is going to be my final answer. If you have any suggestion regarding this solution or any contribution, kindly put this in the comment section. See you next time. Bye.